I think that you don't think I can do it. Oh no. Oh no. I'm hella bored, guys. I also have booked a Peloton class. My history is shocking, so I'm probably talking at my arse. Oh my god, look. Look at them. It felt like I was being electrocuted in the face. Good morning, guys. Welcome to my first vlog of November, where accountability has come to call. So on my July unboxing, I think it was, somebody left a comment suggesting that I spend a month just reading subscription box books, like just exclusively subscription box books. This comment got quite a few likes. So I see you guys, you know, like I think that you don't think I can do it, but I can. Like I can read all of these shiny books that I keep hauling. So in the month of November, I have posted a TBR of my required reads, which are things like my book club books, my Patreon picks, all of that stuff. And I'm going to be reading those as well. But alongside that, the only other things I can read are subscription box books. So as you know, I have been reading a bit more spontaneously recently. And so I've decided to set this challenge on chaos mode. And so we have a jar full of prompts. There's not too many, there's about 20 in here. And at the beginning of each vlog that I make in November, I'm going to start by pulling a prompt out of this jar, and all of the books have to fit this theme. The kind of prompts we have in here, there's different types. There is every subscription box that I have or have had. So if I pull that out, I would have to read exclusively from that box. We have every year that I've received subscription box books, so from 2019 to 2023, and I would have to read books exclusively from that year. We have themes or like challenges that pertain to like types of vlogs that I've done in the past, and there's also a couple of like extra more miscellaneous prompts in here as well. So every vlog is going to have 3 books in it, unless it is one of those more challenge based prompts, which will have their own kind of like rules and bounds depending on what the challenge is. So without further ado, let's see what our first prompt of November is going to be. I have been excited and scared of this all day. So I think I've just got hold of one here. I did strips and I regret it. I should have done squares like I do for my Patreon jar. Oh my god. Are we finally going to be doing the delayed Is the GSFF worth my money vlog? Is that's what this is good? Oh damn, accountability really is coming to call this month. I guess I'll go get the books. So for those of you that don't know, you're about to know. Last year, I did a series of vlogs that was, is the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship worth my money? The Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship is a sci-fi and fantasy subscription that is run by Goldsboro Books. They are a bookstore that specialise in signed and numbered first editions. And I started getting this subscription, I think it was it right at the beginning of 2022? And I started this series of vlogs, which is the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship worth my money? And when I intended to do that, when I started that project, it wasn't to see if it was worth my money. It was just because I wanted to really hold myself accountable to reading the books. But as the series progressed, I kind of found out that maybe the subscription wasn't worth my money, as I set myself a goal of having to like at least 50% of the books, give them a 4 or 5 star, and a lot of them were falling below that. Like I am still subscribed to the GSFF, but I use a lot of my skips. Like I use my skips very wisely to get the books that I want, and I'm glad that I did, because I'm so excited for the December book. It's one of my most anticipated releases of 2024, so I'm glad that I've done this. But I intended to cancel after, or start using my skips after doing one final installment of that vlog series. It's been a year. It's been a year, guys, and I still have not done it. So here we are. This is the final promised installment of Is the Goldsboro Sci-Fi and Fantasy Fellowship worth my money? So I will be reading the books. I do have more Goldsboro books as well, so I could do this differently, but I feel like this is a sign to give you the video that I promised you like in March. So I'm going to be reading the books from December 2022 to February 2023, and I am going to be reading them in order. So we have City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This one is December 2022, one of the most stunning editions that I have. I'm pretty sure that the January one was The Witch and the Saw by Olesya Salnikova-Gilmore. This one reminded me a lot of the Winter Night trilogy in its synopsis. And then the one for February is Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs, which is I think it's a Celtic mythology / folklore kind of story. So our predictions for this round, I think that my favorite of these three might be City of Lost Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I have no recollection what this is about at this point, but it feels more like a classic fantasy kind of story, which is what I'm really in the mood for right now. Adrian Tchaikovsky is a prolific like fantasy and sci-fi author. I've never read any of his work, so I have no idea what his tone, his writing style or anything is going to be like, but I have like cautiously good feelings about this one. And I think that my least favorite might be Shield Maiden, because Celtic mythology isn't my usual thing, so I don't really know what to expect. As we normally find out with these videos, my predictions tend to be very, very wrong, so we'll see what actually happens. And you know what, I'm not mad that this is the first video that we're going to be doing. It may take me a little while, but it's the end of the year. I'm participating in Clear Your Shit as well, which I should probably mention. It's not going to be at the forefront of my videos, but if you follow me on Instagram, I do plan on adding books to like a story template as we progress through the readathon. I'll also link the announcement if you guys want to participate in that. So I'm looking in November and December every year. I'm just generally looking to clear my shit and finally doing this video so that I can unhaul, because I kept all of the books from the vlog series that I didn't like with the intention of doing like a wrap-up video to this vlog series so that I could get rid of the books. And I haven't done that obviously, so they're just sat under the bed in the spare room waiting for me to get my shit together and unhaul them. So that it's going to be a good feeling to have that done by the end of the year. So the first one that we're going to be starting with, because we read them in order, is December 2022, City of Lost Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this book is mainly about the city of Ilmar, which is currently under occupation. It says that it has a criminal underworld. It also mentions factory owners, so I'm getting like an industrial age potentially kind of element to it. And there's also a dark grove of trees called the Anchorwood that I'm thinking are going to lend the magic to this story. The end of the synopsis says, Ilmar, some say, is the worst place in the world and the gateway to 1,000 worst places. Ilmar, city of long shadows, city of bad decisions, city of last chances. I'm worried that this might be like the book that was it Daniel Abraham, Age of Ash, was a book that I read for the GSFF that I didn't love. So I'm worried based on that synopsis that it might be a little bit like that, but only time will tell. So yeah, this one is going to be my first read for November. Wish me luck, guys. This is my first Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'll give you a little bit of an update when I've made some progress in this one. No reading has been done, but I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you guys about something that I'm kind of wanting to document. You may have heard me say recently that I'm getting laser hair removal in like live shows, potentially in vlogs, because I was supposed to have it last week and it got postponed to this week. So I wanted to kind of just show you what we're working with as a base here. So I am mixed race, but I'm also quite light skinned and I have very thick dark hair. So the problem with my hair on my face is that it's so thick and dark and my skin is so light that you can see I have a 5 o'clock shadow permanently, because you can see the hair before it breaks through the skin. I've been shaving my face since I was 13, and I went through for a year or so, I've been having it waxed. Because of how dark and how prominent it is, I'm not only getting like a week of smoothness with a wax before it starts to come through and grow through again, because I can't leave it the 8 weeks that you're supposed to go between waxes because it's too prominent, and I just can't, like I need to be rid of it. So this is mainly for documentation of the process. If you guys, anybody's thinking about getting laser hair removal, I kind of want to talk about my experience with it a little bit. I'm a very good candidate for laser hair removal because it works better on thick hair and dark hair, and I got a lot of that. So my main areas of concern are my upper lip, which as you can see here, we get really thick hair growing in here. But even here where it's finer, it is still quite dark. I last shaved my face on Friday. So this is 5-6 days of growth. We also have this as one of my main areas of concern, where these hairs are multiplying the older I get, which is exacerbated by the issues that I've been having with my hormones. I also have one like long one that grows here somewhere. And even where the hair isn't thick and dark, like even here where it's quite fine, because it's so dark, I feel like it makes, like it adds a lot of shadow to my face that I don't want. And like, yeah, I can shave, I can wax, but I'm not getting lasting results. So for me, even though laser hair removal is a little bit more expensive, it's going to cost me £66 per session, I think. And I recommend like 8 to 12 sessions depending on the results. It is so worth it to theoretically fix a problem that I've had for 17 years. So I'm actually really excited. I am hoping that we get good results all over, because she said like she's going to do like all of this area and then just get the odd hairs that I have under here. But she says like she thinks I'm gonna have really good results here and here, and we're just gonna kind of see what happens here. So ideally, if I could just be hair free, that literally like it would be a life changer for me and deal with like a massive insecurity that I've had my entire life. My eyebrows, I do get waxed and I will still be getting them waxed, so I'm a little bit like shadowy at the minute, but that is, I have my nail appointment next Thursday and my nail tech is also my beautician, so that will be sorted. So I'm gonna shave my face because you have to do that before laser hair removal, but I just wanted to come and talk to you guys about it a little bit. I know that when I've been talking about it on Patreon sprints, I've had some people express interest in like how successful it is to me. And it's also something that I just generally wanted to talk about to raise awareness for the girls, the girlies out there with thick, dark upper lip hair that is the bane of their existence.
That brings you to leaderboard to your right. Send love, send high fives. Give some love to PFT Coffee Drop in the front row.
It started a rain afternoon in the fall. This weather always makes me think about it all. The woman across me.
So I'm gonna be real honest and say that I really don't want to read this book, and I'm also gonna be real honest and say that I'm not even that far into it. I am finding the writing style to be quite fussy, and it also is kind of reading like a series of interconnected short stories. Each chapter starts with like a brief description of the person, like the character that it's going to follow, and they're very like short things like that happen that all kind of link together. It's been a couple of days and I don't want to read this book. Like I'm actively avoiding reading because of this book, and usually I am the biggest advocate, especially with adult fantasy, of giving like reading at least half of the book, if not the entire thing, because the beginning of adult fantasy, it can be slow. Like it can take you a long time to get into it. It can take you a long time, especially to understand what's going on and really get into the story. So it's very much unlike me to DNF a book at like 50 pages in like an adult fantasy, because I do genuinely just feel like I haven't really given it a chance. That being said, I also did say the promise that I made to myself when I went into this challenge for this month was that if this ever stops being fun, that I was going to stop doing it, because putting myself through books, through challenges, through videos that make me feel really, really slumpy and then stress me out because I'm feeling slumpy and I can't do the thing I'm trying to do is what we don't do anymore on this channel. I stopped doing that last year. So I am going to DNF this one. I am quite happy doing that. Like I genuinely don't feel like I'm missing something. I feel regret because I don't feel like I've necessarily given it a fair chance, but I'm not looking at this book and thinking that I'm missing out by not reading it. And I predicted that this was going to be my favorite this video, so it's not going well, is it? Like it's not, we're not getting off to a good start. So I did not sleep very well last night. I feel like you can tell, like I look like someone who didn't sleep last night. I've had a rough night. So I got out of bed at 6:15 this morning. I started being physically active in the morning to kind of try and combat seasonal depression in the dark mornings. I've just felt really generally quite slumpy, slow and unmotivated over the last couple of weeks, and I used to get up and go first thing in the morning. The thing that gets me out of bed is coffee, and I stopped drinking coffee as soon as I get up to stop having like crashes, like energy crashes in the afternoon. And it does actually work. If you wait an hour to drink your coffee in the morning, it stops you from crashing in the afternoon. But that meant that I started being real lazy in the morning again because I didn't want to do anything taxing without having coffee. So I'm trying, I'm gonna see if I can do it almost every day in November, to get up in the morning, walk, breathe straight away, come home, do my workout, and then drink my coffee and read. So I got up at 6:15, took Bree straight out, came home, did a 45-minute workout. I did 30 minutes of arms and 20 minutes of core. And guys that have outdoor cats, do you ever see your cat and wonder how they got inside? Because I let him out before I walked Brie and I don't remember letting him in. I'm sure it's just like a subconscious thing that I did, but sometimes, like genuinely multiple times a week, I look at him and I'm like, how did you get here? Like I didn't let you in. But anyway, I've been trying to get up and be physically active to make me more motivated throughout the day and raise my energy levels, and it's actually been working out pretty well. Not sure it's going to combat the lack of sleep today though, but while I drink my coffee, I am going to be moving on to my next book for this video, which I feel like I could like this one because it sounds very similar to the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. We have Yaga, who lives in the forest, and she lives alone with her animals for company, and then Tsaritsa Anastasia turns up on her doorstep on the brink of death, and Yaga feels compelled to travel to Moscow to make sure that she's safe. And the husband of Tsaritsa Anastasia is the Ivan that is to become Ivan the Terrible, and Yaga believes that the Tsaritsa is being poisoned. Very exciting. I do love me some historical fantasy. I am a big fan of the Winter Night trilogy, so I'm excited about this because of that. But then on the flip side, I am also a little bit nervous about this one because I don't want to feel like it's just kind of trying to be the Winter Night trilogy. You know, it's a real pretty edition as well. And I mean, I'm still in the autumnal mood. This is more wintry. This one is the January 2023 pick, but it's definitely getting cold out there.
I wonder what they're for. A candlelight dinner, a date in the park, a night at the theater, or love in the dark. I don't know where she's going. I don't even know her name. I don't know if her life has been a breeze or a hurricane. I don't know if he loves her or if loving him is pain. But I do know that our fates have intertwined for a moment.
Oh no. Good morning, welcome to my fermentation station. The only thing I have on today's agenda is to read. I spent yesterday morning doing like the weekly clean of downstairs, you know, like the basic one. Like I could clean more, but that's just like the weekly maintenance clean has been done. I then went out to see my dad because he has a new family member, as you saw in the b-roll. She's very, very cute as well. I really wanted to bring her home. And today I don't have anything on except a bonfire because it's bonfire night, which is, it's only like a 10-minute walk away and it's at like 7 p.m. so I got loads of time. So you can tell that I'm in it for the long haul today because I got my water, my coffee, I have both of the books that I'm currently reading, I have the blanket. I brought a bigger blanket in from the living room. I've reinstalled the Forest app on my phone and I'm really upset because it's an app that you have to pay for, and I've had to pay for it again because I previously had it on Android and now I'm an iPhone user. If there's a way around paying for it again, please don't tell me, because now I've paid for it and then I'll just be frustrated that I didn't look into that. I also have a hot water bottle for the cramps, so you can see why we're fermenting today. And I'm just going to do some dice sprints by myself and use the Forest app to keep me off my phone. I mean, I generally don't need a lot of help staying off my phone these days. I normally leave it on my desk over there so that I can't touch it and look at it regularly. Hey, Bubba. Welcome. Here you see a rare occurrence where we have Hamilton and Brie in one place. Whether they stay like this truly does depend on what mood Brie is in. But yeah, I don't plan on moving for most of the day. When I hit like maybe page goals or time goals or something, I may like watch a little bit of YouTube or play some PlayStation, but nothing taxing is going to be done today if I can help. So I am just past the halfway point now in The Witch and the Tsar, and I'm hella bored, guys. I'm not having the best time. The synopsis of this is pretty much what it does lay out in the dust jacket. We're following Baba Yaga, who is not a baba. She does not like this like crone-like reputation that she's been given. In appearance, she's like a 30-ish-year-old woman. She's the daughter of the goddess of earth. Her father was a mortal man, so she's like a half goddess. And when the Tsaritsa was younger, she used to visit Yaga. So this was before, obviously, that she became the Tsaritsa and moved to Moscow. But one day, Anastasia turns up on Yaga's doorstep, which is the house with the chicken legs, and asks for her help because she believes that she's dying. So Yaga figures out that Anastasia's being poisoned. She heals her, sends her back to Moscow, and Anastasia actually asks her to go with her. And Yaga's like really reluctant. She hasn't had a great experience with humans, especially because this is at the time, once again, where the world is turning away from the old gods and towards Christianity. So with her not being a Christian, she would be persecuted if people found out that she was a witch. So she doesn't really want to go, but she has a vision that Anastasia is actually going to die. So she heads over to Moscow to try and protect Anastasia and get to the bottom of who is trying to poison her. This kind of uncovers a old, like long-standing plot that's been in the works for like a very long time with some of the gods and the goddesses, and things are kind of getting out of balance, like Morozko, who's the god of winter, has turned up even though it should be summer. And alongside this, we have Ivan the Terrible, who has been like, his nature has been tempered by Anastasia, who is the great love of his life, but as her health starts to decline, so does his temper, until he grows into this Ivan the Terrible figure. I don't know whether it's the writing of this book, but I'm just not invested in the story. We're kind of like working with the figures of the real world, with the princes, with the Tsar, with the Tsaritsa. Is it Tsaritsa or Tsaritsa? You'll have to let me know. But we're working with those to unpick this plot that has been laid out by immortals, and there's also immortals that are working like against Yaga as well. And in theory, I feel like I should like it. I really like Russian folklore, as with the Winter Night trilogy. I'm pretty sure there's something else I've read not too long ago that I also really liked that was Russian folklore, but I don't know whether this reads a little bit more historical fiction, or because it just seems like kind of slow and not engaging. I want to feel it's written in first person, which usually like lends itself to a connection between the character whose eyes you are viewing the story through and the reader, but I don't feel any connection to her at all. I'm not invested in the plot and I'm not invested in the character, and that means that like there's very little that's holding me into this book. That being said, like it's not a terrible reading experience. Like it's not like the City of Last Chances where I was just like, I don't want to read this book, I don't want to pick it up. It's not that bad. So I feel going to see this one through to the end, but I don't suspect it's going to be a very high rating from me. In between these first person chapters as well, we have interludes, which I am finding a little bit more interesting, and they are from the perspective of some of these secondary characters. We've had them from the Tsar, from some gods and goddesses and like ancient figures, also like the other immortals that I mentioned. So I am enjoying those because they're giving us like a little bit of an alternate look into the story. I feel like the story lacks the depth that I need to really get into a fantasy book, and I also feel like there's nothing in here to hook me. Like there's nothing that I'm attached to make me invested in this story. There's a lack of like depth and attachment there for me. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. I'm gonna go make lunch now and then carry on with my fermenting. I am gonna switch over to the other book I'm reading, which is not a Goldsboro book, but I am reading Wildlands off my TBR at the minute, which is my Patreon pick, or my Patreon book club book, sorry, for November. I forgot what month it was then. I'm on page 207 of this, so I'm probably going to try and get around to about 250 and then switch back to this, and I'm going to try and like keep alternating between 50-page increments up until a little bit later this afternoon, when I think I'm going to take Brie out just before dinner.
Almost at the downtown stop. I'm already late, but I don't wanna get up. Outside the city's painted gray, but in here the world is on display. And then behind me carries a suitcase.
So bringing you an update under this horrible overhead lighting was not actually the plan, but Hamilton is asleep on my chair. He's also on top of my hot water bottle, which I've been using for my cramps, and I'm kind of offended, but I thought for the sake of doing a vlog update, I won't disturb him. I'll be nice just this once. But there have been a few turns of events and none of them involve reading. I spent most of the day doing sprints with Steph for the final book support group. It was like the last sprint of the readathon today, and I got through a bunch of admin tasks, which was really great for me because y'all know I procrastinate on doing those. So I've got a bunch of like small niggly tasks done, and I also have booked a Peloton class. And if you guys remember back in May, I went to New York and the only thing I wanted to do was attend a Peloton class, and they dropped the classes 6 weeks in advance, and I had been practicing up until the week that they were going to drop the classes for the week that I was in New York. I had been scoping out like how to book a class, the best way to do it, the queue system, how easy it is to book one, and the day that the classes actually went live, and I had been doing this for weeks, like for 4 weeks in advance. I'd been trying to like find out how to book a Peloton class and like doing practice runs. On the day that the classes actually dropped, my hormones had dipped really badly and I had really bad brain fog, and I woke up the morning after and was like, well shit, I missed that drop like 16 hours ago. So I was devastated. Like, I was so upset because I've been doing Peloton religiously. Y'all know I'm a Peloton stan. I've been doing it almost every day for the last 2.5 years, and when my mental health was really bad, I spent a lot of time exercising because it makes me feel better. And I honestly just have so much love for the Peloton community and so much love for the instructors that I just really wanted to do an in-person class while the like main hub studios are in New York, and I missed that chance. And while I can go to London whenever and do like classes with the London instructors, I actually don't really work out with any of the London instructors. I do sporadically, but they're not amongst my favorites. So during this year, Peloton have gone on tour. They did Atlanta, LA, I think somewhere else in the US, and they're coming to London at the end of the month. And when they announced the instructor lineup, I was like, okay, only one of these is my faves. And they announced like a bunch of events and I wasn't really sure what they entailed. They were kind of vague in the descriptions, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. And like, what if I booked an event for Thursday and then they drop the class schedule and the one instructor that I care about is only doing a class on like Sunday? Like, I don't really want to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds staying in London like all that time. So the classes dropped today and the instructor that I'm gunning for is Ali Love, and I clicked on the booking thing. Like, I got in there like 8 minutes after the queue started and I was clicking book and it was saying like, sorry, this class is full, like you can't book. And I just kept pressing it until it let me in, and I'm going doing a 30-minute ride with Ali Love on the 30th of November. I am so hyped. I'm so excited. I actually literally cried. I'm so happy. I'm very intimidated. I'm very scared, especially because I work out at home now. It's been a long time since I've been to any in-person class, never mind like a Peloton one. So I'm a little bit nervous, but I need to figure out over the next couple of days like a hotel and trains and stuff for London. So I think we're also going to stay down there for a little bit and go to Brighton to see Beth and Nathaniel. So yeah, I'm really excited but kind of really overwhelmed because that I don't do last minute plans, and that being in 24 days, 3.5 weeks away, is a little bit more last minute than I'm used to, but it's worth it. It's the perfect end to my year of slay. And the other thing you might have seen in the B-roll for Saturday that I was pulling thread to start a new project, and I've been waiting for the fabric to arrive, which came today. I got a sparkly gold Ada, and I have begun a little Christmas project because I actually dipped into Cody's sprints only for like 30 seconds the other day, and everyone was talking about Christmas, and I'm one of those gals, like Christmas for me starts on December 1st, but because of that, as I'm putting the decorations up, as I'm getting into the festive period in the beginning of December, I'm always like, oh, I wish I had had time to make something. I wish I'd thought ahead and done this, because like if you're in the middle of December, it's a little bit too late to be having these thoughts, because if you're starting a project, it's not going to be finished in December, and if it's not finished in December, I'm not doing a Christmas project in January. So while they put me on that thought path, I looked up advent calendars because I'm normally like super last minute when I realize I don't have one, and I can't think, like I haven't seen one that I'm like, oh my god, I need that one, aside from like the Cult Beauty one, but that's very expensive, so not gonna happen. And I wanted to start a Christmas cross stitch, so I've printed out the pattern, but I haven't printed out the picture of what the actual finished project is. It's gonna take me a while, so I'll check in with you guys like as it builds, but this is the one that I've gone with. Like I said, I got a sparkly gold 14 count Ada, and I already had a full set of DMC threads that my ex gifted them to me, so like 9 years ago, and every time I run out of one I just kind of replace it. So I had the threads, I just bought the fabric and the pattern, and I'm really excited to get properly stuck into that. So I haven't read a page today. I have about 140 pages left of The Witch and the Tsar, which I'm hoping I can kind of finish tonight. I got up at 7 this morning, walked Brie and worked out, so I don't really have anything on my agenda for the rest of the night. So I'm gonna try to get to the end of that, but also try and get some like cross stitching done, because I love reading, but I'm really guilty of I can read 200 pages in a day, and instead of going to do something else that I also love, I'm like, yeah, but if you carried on reading you could read more. So I don't really want to do that right now. I want to spread the love to some of my other hobbies, so hopefully throughout today I'll also find some time to cross stitch, but also hopefully finish the book.
But shadows on his face. Was it just a bad day? Will he laugh when he gets home? Or did it all go astray? And now he sleeps alone. I don't know where he's going. I don't even know his name.
So I finally finished my first book for November and our first book for this challenge. I didn't love it though. My thoughts didn't change too terribly from the last time that I gave you an update. This did turn out to be shorter than I expected it to be because it actually ends on page 399, and then there's like 16 pages of like acknowledgements, an author's note and a glossary. I did read through the author's note and I feel like the intention behind this novel is solid. I also feel like it is very well researched. I just don't feel like the execution was all there, because to me this just felt very one note all the way through. And my favorite element of this is that there is a relationship in here, and it has kind of like an air of like bittersweetness and not quite tragedy, but it's very like secondary to the main kind of story that's going on with the magic and the politics of the world. And because of that, it does have kind of like a bittersweet nature to it, which is my favorite thing. I eat that shit up. But I felt pretty much nothing for that, and I just don't feel like the writing it evoked any emotion. I feel like while we had all of these different elements and they are drawn from like folklore, like Slavic folklore, and also from like the real history of Russia in the 1500s. Is that the 16th century? Yeah, the 16th century, so like the history of 16th century Russia, all came together in a way where we had like all of these like small complex elements, and when you read the author's note and you know where each individual piece came from, it is very clearly very well researched, and the author had an image in mind when she was assembling all of these elements. But I feel like they, without having the background knowledge of Ivan the Terrible, without having a background knowledge of Slavic folklore, which I mean I do a little bit but not extensively, you are not getting the full depth of this story, because I feel like the depth of the story would be reliant on your own knowledge, because with all of these coming together in a 400-page book, I don't feel like the depth of each element is there. Now, I do feel like we have to talk a little bit about genre expectation when I'm talking about this book, because I'm an epic fantasy girly. That is my like god tier fantasy. I like big sweeping dynamic plots. I like complexity. I like very good plotting, dynamic characters you can root for, real emotional plot twists, life or death situations. This is not that kind of fantasy. So did this do what it did well? Maybe. If you like standalone fantasy books that have a certain level of atmosphere, are steeped in folklore, maybe are also historical, you will potentially enjoy this more than I did. But for me, a standalone fantasy just generally is not going to cut it unless it is masterful, and I don't feel like that this like quite hit that level for me. So I have given it 2 stars because my overall feeling of this was that it was fine. I did enjoy the writing, I did like the characters, but I just felt nothing the entire time that I was reading this. And I feel like a book with so much tragedy and so many like little connections between the players in the plot had so much more potential to invoke emotion, and I felt very detached the entire time I was reading this. It did feel like a one-note kind of story for me. So we will reinstate the Goldsboro leaderboard. I have no idea at the point of filming this. I'm gonna have to refresh myself before I finish the 3rd book that we're covering in this video, but I have no idea what the standings, like what this table looks like at this point, but I know that it's not good. So we will be moving on to book 3 now. I did, like when I start these books, I do look up the average Goodreads rating. This one I think had a 3.69, 3.59 rating on this one. This one has a 3.6 rating, so very slightly better. Now, I did have a kind of, when I was reading this, I felt like it almost strayed into the category of literary fantasy, which isn't my fave. And I feel based on the US cover for this one that it may potentially also go in that direction. This one I believe is also a standalone. According to Goodreads, Goodreads doesn't say that it has any sequels, and I think that this one is Celtic folklore, which is not something that I'm super familiar with at all, which you might find a little bit surprising because Celtic mythology, I'm pretty sure, comes from England, Ireland and Scotland. So it's the mythology that's closest to home, but I can't think of anything that I've read that is inspired by Celtic mythology. I'm having very distant memories of learning about the Celts in like primary school. Was Boudica a Celt? Yeah, Boudica was an ancient Celtic queen. So that is pretty much the extent of my knowledge of like what I learned 20 years ago about the Celts. I am thinking though, I'm pretty sure that this is also a Beowulf retelling, and I thought that Beowulf was Germanic. I know there is a little bit of overlap between Celtic and Norse, and then looking at the glossary in the back as well, it doesn't specify, but there's a lot of the language is like, this is Old English, like Beowulf means Beowulf in Old English, which is another word for bear. But then there's also, like, if we go to Wayland, which is an Old English and Old Norse legendary blacksmith. So my history is absolutely shocking, and it comes from very vague memories of primary school, and also that I have been watching, or I have watched, The Last Kingdom. So obviously there was a lot of invasion back in the day, in the origins of it, like England before it was England, which means that there was a lot of like Norse influence in the founding of England, I guess, as we know it. Like I said, my history is shocking, so I'm probably talking at my arse, but I'm excited to give this one a go. This was predicted to be my least favourite book of this challenge, but we'll see, because it doesn't have much to live up to at this point, because I gave this one 2 stars and I DNF'd the first one, so surely it's only, it can't get much worse than this, right?
In a breeze or hurricane, I don't know if he's happy or if all he knows is pain, but I do know that our fates have intertwined for a moment on a train. How many timelines collide inside these walls? How many good times and tear-soaked phone calls? Decades of living, a multiverse ballet.
I've just been editing the vlog and I turned around and these two are just like chilling on the couch next to each other, which is such a big deal. We've had it recently. Oh my god, look at them. We've had it fairly recently where, like, if I'm sat on the couch, I'll have one on each side and they won't bother with each other, but this is truly a record. Like, she's resting her head on him. What is this? Oh, my heart. Look. Okay, no, this is where he's gonna have enough and leave. It's ruined. It's done. I got a Waterstones parcel and I feel like we all know what it is. I'm actually obviously not going to be reading this until who knows when, but I do feel like I kind of need to read this sooner rather than later, because otherwise I feel like I'm gonna get spoiled. The way that people are going rabid for this book in this series is truly insane, and I really liked book 1. I gave it 5 stars. I do feel like it was one of those 5 stars that was very much in the moment, and on reflection would probably give it a 4, but I am still really excited to read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is upside down. This one is the Waterstones edition, so it has the really pretty stenciled edge on it. Also pretty good condition, which is unusual for Waterstones, to be honest. They're normally always scuffed. They also just have really, this is the standard end pages for the book. This isn't exclusive to Waterstones or anything, which is super pretty. I have ordered the Fairy Loot editions of this though, so if Fairy Loot comes out of the jar at any point throughout November, I am going to allow myself to read Iron Flame, because at some point I will have a copy of Iron Flame from a subscription box. It's just that's only shipping in like March next year, and actually my main priority with reading this is not because I'm desperate to read it, even though I did really love Fourth Wing and I know when I get into it I'm going to love Iron Flame as well, assumedly. The early reviews that I've heard from the people that stayed up all night is that it is good and that they have enjoyed it, which I would be worried based on the hype of Fourth Wing that Iron Flame would potentially be a letdown, but it seems at the minute that that's not the case. The only reason why I'm desperate to prioritize this is that I don't want to be spoiled, and I feel like I'm running the risk of being spoiled by putting this off because of how hyped it is. So hopefully I can fit this into a TBR sometime soon. How big is it without spoilers? Over 600 pages, damn. So if I do manage to squeeze it in to this month, that's another chunky book to be added. But yeah, at least it's here now. I need to compare this to my US edition because I feel like there is going to be a slight size difference. I ordered the Waterstones edition that matches this one, mainly because I think there's going to be a size difference between this one and the one that I picked up in New York, but it is, I love the bronze of it. I have been having anxiety today, which is about as exciting and fun as it sounds. I spent the majority of the day editing, but I have also got a little bit of reading done, and I feel like you can very easily tell that this is the book that I'm enjoying the most from this video. I mean, one, because I haven't DNF'd it less than 50 pages in, but also I'm already 166 pages into it, which is almost at the halfway point. And I did like a 30-second Google into Celtic Celtic mythology yesterday to make sure I had like some semblance of an idea of what I was talking about. And I was right that Celtic mythology comes from England, Ireland and Scotland. It does also cover Wales though, and also like this in particular, Beowulf, is set in Sweden, and there is also, I think, France and Germany have some Celtic mythology there as well. I also realized though when I started this that I am more familiar with Celtic mythology than I originally thought, just not from books. I'm familiar with Celtic mythology because of video games, because of things like Skyrim, because of RPGs and MMOs that quite often draw on Celtic mythology. So when I said that I wasn't familiar with it, I was very much thinking like, how many Celtic books have I read? Which I think is potentially none. I do remember DNFing one that had a lot of influences and felt very confused, but I don't think I remember reading anything that's like solely Celtic mythology up until this point. But I am very familiar with the references like Celtic influence on video games. This one, I'm pretty sure it's an adult book because of the themes that it covers, and also some of the minor characters that we follow in here will have like short paragraphs or like a couple of pages from the perspective of characters that aren't our two mains, but we do have the perspectives of like a few adult characters in here. And I guess our main characters are also adults, but they are, I guess, the children within the society. Our main character Freda is 20 and she is the daughter of a lord and is related to Beowulf in some way. It isn't explicit how, but her father traveled with him, fought with him like back in the day, and they are celebrating at Freda's home the 50th celebration, like the current, not what's it called, the Jubilee essentially of Beowulf. Now this is a partial Beowulf retelling and quite handy actually at the beginning because I haven't read Beowulf. It tells you what the story of Beowulf is, which says that it's an old English poem that recounts the tale of the superhuman hero turned king Beowulf. So the poem follows Beowulf fighting three monsters. The first is Grendel, who was eating people in Denmark. Then there was Grendel's mother who wanted revenge for her son's death, and then a dragon who destroyed Beowulf's village. So this book in particular is about Beowulf's battle with the dragon, but apparently the original poem tells the story of an unnamed slave who'd been exiled from his master's house, found a way into a dragon's lair filled with treasure. He stole a goblet which woke a dragon that rained havoc and fire down upon the land. So this book is about the slave and the woman that is in love with the slave. So our main character is Freda, and she has since childhood been very drawn to one of her father's slaves. Now obviously she is the daughter of a lord. She cannot marry a slave. That is not a thing. So far throughout this story we've been getting to know them. There's also like some rumbling amongst the king and like Freda's father's warriors that maybe implies the existence of a secret plot to like wreak havoc among this burh that like Freda's father controls. We also have Freda's twin brother who is essentially a drunk. He spends too much time whining and dining and not enough time learning how to take over from his father, which is going to have repercussions for him, and he is exactly as entitled, bratty and spoiled as he sounds from my description. So he, upon not getting the recognition for things that he thinks he deserves, even though he absolutely doesn't, he's definitely going to take offense at that. We also have a blacksmith in here called Bryce, who I love. I don't know what it is about this character archetype, but it is like the guy who used to be a warrior and has realized kind of the error of his ways and has kind of like grown older, matured, and settled down to a more peaceful existence to almost atone for the things that he did in his past. That's what Bryce is in this book, and I eat that up. It reminds me of Logan from the First Law series, even though arguably Logan is not necessarily atoning for his misdeeds in his youth. The chapters in the most part are split between Freda and Theo, but in between the chapters we do have small like 1-2 page almost interludes from the perspective of a dragon called Feardraka. She is talking quite cryptically because I think that she's trapped, and so she's referring to people like not by their names but like the senses that she gets from them. Like she calls somebody the lone survivor, so obviously somebody in this story at some point is going to be the lone survivor, but she, I think, is referring to a different timeline that isn't the timeline that we're currently following. So I'm trying to piece together like what story she's telling, but I believe that she is the dragon that's going to rise from the earth and rain fire upon everybody, which, I mean, the state of some of these people, cool. Beowulf seems pretty cool. I like him. But everybody else, I wouldn't mind if she rained fire upon them. So I'm definitely having a good time with this. Like I said, I'm going to check that this is adult and not YA, just because the writing style is, I know it's not simple. It's just a writing style that a YA book could be told from. I do think because of some of the themes, we have like threat of sexual assault in here, and also we have a lot of topics of slavery. I do feel like this is adult. Also, some of the like content in the chapters from the perspective of the adults, it doesn't necessarily shy away from things like the sexism and the barbarity of the world at these times, which is why I do think it is skewing a little bit more adult, but the writing style isn't overly dense or fussy or complicated, and I'm having a good time with it. So I am aiming to finish this tomorrow. I'm doing sprints all day with my patrons tomorrow from, well, all day from midday up until probably around dinner time. So I'm thinking that I'll get quite a bit read then. And tonight I wanted to watch Scream 4 with Curtis, but I think he said the football's on. So I guess I'm going to get some more reading done tonight as well. But that is my plan. I'm definitely having a good time with this and it feels good. This is why I'm reluctant to do challenges like this so often anymore, because there is a marked difference in my reading pace when I'm enjoying a book to when I'm not enjoying a book. And when you are reading to make content, like I have schedules that I need to adhere to and there is flexibility within that schedule, but at some point like I gotta post a video. And when I'm really reluctant to read a book, like I can't be uncomfortable for any length of time, guys. Like one page of a book that I don't want to read feels like an eternity. So it feels good to be enjoying a book, and hopefully this it's scary. This challenge for this month is scary because who knows how many of these books are going to be a struggle.
Tomorrow, all of these seats will be filled with new faces. Anyway,
Yeah, if you want.
they won't know
Breezy!
They won't even know my name. They won't know if my life has been a breeze or
Oh my god.
they won't know that I sit here writing verses of their pain.
Good morning. I have Patreon sprints in an hour and I want to get a shower before they start, but before I got in the shower I wanted to give you an update on my laser hair removal appointment. So the last time I showed you guys, like the first time we checked in, I had 6 days of hair growth. I've had one hair removal session. This is 1 week of growth. So we have a little bit coming in here. We have barely anything in here. Like look at that, there's like maybe 2 hairs here and a couple just about to push through. This, hardly anything. This side, hardly anything. Peach fuzz not even really making an appearance yet, but I don't normally shave that. I do that like very sporadically. So the main growth areas, which is here and here, already a marked improvement. After your first appointment, like the hair can start to grow back a little bit patchy. She said like 9 to 10 days after your appointment, it can all just kind of like fall out. But these results after one session is so much better than I predicted. After your first session, generally you might not see a lot of difference at all. I haven't shaved in a week. Normally this growth, like this would be worse in 2 days than it has been in 1 week. In terms of the actual appointment, all of this area was completely fine. I will say that when she was doing across my upper lip, it felt like I was being electrocuted in the face and I did cry. So not my finest moment, but it was really, really sore. Afterwards, there was no redness, no swelling. This bit felt a little bit tender, kind of like it does straight after a wax. The day after, there was no sensitivity or anything. So far so good. I will check in with you, obviously not in this vlog, but within like before my next appointment maybe, but if not, definitely another week after my second appointment, which is in the first week of December. But I am honestly like, these results are so much better than expected. I could cry because like I said, this is like a problem that I've had my entire life, and of these results after one session I could cry. I finished Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs, and this one has definitely been my favorite book of the three that I've read in this video, because obviously I DNF'd the first one, but I saying that, I did still give it 3 stars, which is a decent rating. It means I enjoyed it, and I did really enjoy this one, which I think is quite unusual for me, because this one definitely leans a little bit more plot heavy, and I am not necessarily a character driven reader, because I do like a really well thought out, complex, intricate plot alongside really deep multi-dimensional characters. But if I had to pick one, if a book had to lean one way more than the other, I would always go character driven over plot driven, because that's just my preference, you know. And relating to the characters in this one, I did find them a little bit frustrating in parts. I found some of them a little bit two-dimensional. I thought that the main characters of Fraser and Theo, albeit being 20 years old, did read a little bit younger to me. They very much felt like the children in this story, and I enjoyed the perspectives of the adults, fleeting as they were, like much more than I enjoyed the perspective of our main characters. I feel like the way that this book wrapped up was very unrealistic in its idealism. It's just the kind of story it is, you know, so it's not like I'm mad about it. It's just, to me, the way that some things wrapped up in this is not the way that like it really would have gone down, especially as a lot of this story did represent like the, I guess, like I mentioned, the brutality and the sexism of living in this time. The ending was a little bit convenient, I would say, in light of all of that. I did say I would look up whether this was YA and adult. It's published as adult, I believe. I don't believe it's published as a YA novel. I do think that it is very crossover though. I don't think, while there is some content that's a little bit more descriptive than you would typically get in a YA book, I don't think there's a whole ton of stuff in here that would alienate this book from a YA audience, especially given that the perspectives of our 2 main characters do feel quite young. So it kind of almost is like you're reading maybe an adult book from the perspective of young adult characters, like young adult characters have found their way into this more adult novel. So I feel like it's definitely a little bit crossover in that regard. So I enjoyed this. Would my life be drastically different? Like, if I'd never read this book, would I be sad about it? No. But probably not. And this book in itself is not compelling enough for me to have like a burning desire to pick anything up from this author again. Not saying that I won't, it's just me enjoying this book wouldn't necessarily be a deciding factor in that. That brings us to the end of this vlog. I will put the Goldsboro leaderboard as it stands up on screen so that you guys can take a look. I am going to be making a follow-up video to this vlog series, because this will be the final installment in Is the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship Worth My Money? Because based on my enjoyment of the books alone, there are other perks to having the Goldsboro subscription, which I will talk about in that follow-up video, but based on my enjoyment of the books alone, it is a resounding no. I am actually going to rework the leaderboard as well, because in between me making the rest of the installments in this series and this one, I have changed my rating system a little bit, especially in regard to things ranging between 2 to 4 stars. So based on that, a couple of the 4 stars are going to be moving, like they're more of actually a 3 in reality at this point, and the 3 stars, there's a lot of the 3 stars that would actually be a 2. So it doesn't change the findings and the final standings of this in terms of rating, but I just wanted to do like a comparison of like based on at the time that I actually read these books, and with a little bit of distance and with a little of a bit of an adjusted rating system, like kind of where the standings would be now. And we'll talk about in that follow-up video like the subscription as a whole and my experience with it. So in conclusion for this video, I read 3 books, which were the December, January and February picks for the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship. We DNF'd this very early on. I still have absolutely no regrets. I am happy to unhaul this. I am sad only because it's beautiful. I don't want to read this book. And like, look at the personal growth, me being able to say I don't want to read this book instead of being adamant I will give it like a chance. The Witch and the Tsar came in the middle, I guess, if the first one was a DNF. This one I gave a 2-star to. It was okay, but I was bored throughout the most of it. And then my favorite one, which is the one, this is actually reverse order, because the one that I predicted being my least favorite is the one that I enjoyed the most, and the one that I predicted being my favorite, like I DNF very early on. But my favorite of the 3 nearly hit the deck was Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs, which I did enjoy, but overall I don't think it left a lasting impression on me. So 3 stars to a DNF was the range of this final installment, which I feel like is all you really need to know. But I do find that subscription boxes, the weakest books, are normally in the December to March period. Definitely January and February tend to be complete flops across the majority of the subscription boxes I get. I guess it's because like in every industry, new releases are pushed in the lead up to Christmas so that people buy them as gifts, and then January and February tend to be like low stake releases, or like I guess things that estimate potentially lower return. So I assume that's why like the pool of selections for subscription boxes for those months aren't great, but it was definitely reflected in the results of this video. So that marks the end of the first vlog in my month of subscription books. I am still looking for a clever name for this month of subscription books, and I'm not getting anywhere with it, so we'll see if anything pops out before I actually post this vlog, which is very unlikely. I do not know what I'm going to be reading next week because I haven't pulled from the jar yet, but I'm very excited and I'm hoping that the results are better than the results of this vlog. So do stay tuned if you want to see me tackle some more subscription box books. Aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you've enjoyed it if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.